Hello, BookTube. Welcome back to AusLit 101. And today we're moving on in the fiction section because we're talking about middle grade books today. We done children's books yesterday, now it's time to go to middle grade. I am a bit uneven with middle grade just because I didn't really read much of it growing up, really. I kind of just skipped it and went to young adult, to be honest. Even then, I wasn't the biggest young adult fan. But yeah, so I do have a good list today. There's probably four-ish books here, a lot of recommendations. And so let's start it. So I'm going to give you a classic middle grade book from Australia, and that is, I don't think this is a middle grade. I think it could be between like picture books or young adult. I don't know exactly what category it is, but it's going to be Seven Little Australians by Ethel Turner. This was written 1894, and we follow seven siblings. They live in Sydney in the 1890s, and they are very mischievous, and they get up to a lot of adventures around the house pretty much. And the thing is that their parents are very controlling. They got their strict army father, Captain Woolcott, and their stepmom Esther, and they pretty much the book is just them clashing over and over again. Um, it's very interesting, very lovely. It's very innocent too at the same time, which I really appreciate. You'll probably find it online as a PDF, public domain by this point. But yeah, if you want a classic like middle grade-ish Australian book, that is probably the best one around. Again, I know I'm leaving some big names off this list, but then we're moving on to a real personal favorite of mine. Again, I think this can count as middle grade because I remember reading this around the middle grade age, and that is Paul Jennings. I'm going to give you his short stories to recommend, and I have them here. I have the three volume collection of them. Pretty much Paul Jennings, he's very much the closest author I think who ever got close to Roald Dahl in terms of that dark, grim humor and very observed. But Paul Jennings a bit more grounded when it comes to that. A lot more just everyday events he takes and exaggerates a bit more. And I just love his writing. It's so witty, so funny. If you ever see him around, pick him up. He's done a lot more than just short stories. But yeah, they're just some of my favorite like younger books, and I just love them to death. To be honest, I love them growing up, and so I'm going to give you some Paul Jennings, and then we're moving on to a contemporary of Paul, Morris Glitzman. He again wrote for decades, but I'm going to give you his Once book series. This is seven books, and pretty much we follow Felix, and he's a young boy who escapes his orphanage, and he believes that his parents are having like business or financial problems, but only to turn out the Holocaust is going on. So it's historical fiction, and then he meets a young girl named Zelda, whose parents have already died, and pretty much it's just them traveling together and trying to survive. Very lovely series. You've seen it around. It's famous. It's becoming like it surely is by now a modern classic when it comes to it's like just younger fiction, and I really enjoyed them, to be honest. They were really good. But Morris has written for decades. Whatever you see of him, just literally just pick it up. And then last thing I'm gonna recommend for you today is the My Australian Story series. Now, this is a spin on the Dear America series, which was like historical books aimed for younger people, historical fiction, and it's pretty much the Australian version. And pretty much yeah, each book is like written as like a fictional diary of a young person's life during an important event from Australian history, some of which we've covered, and they're just very lovely. It is a great way to expose Australia history to young people. I remember the Gallipoli one, really loving. There's a Ned Kelly one. There's First Fleet ones. There's literally everything under the sun, and they're just very lovely. I loved them growing up, and if you want a bit more history in there too, they do a really great job. And again, I don't own any. I really should. But yeah, that is some and middle grade ones. Again, those Australian stories probably are a bit more young adult, but I remember reading them when I was in the middle grade age. And so I'm just gonna put that out there. And yeah, next Auslit 101, we're moving on to young adult, and that's gonna be there's some good books there. But yeah, so let me know if you have any middle grade recommendations below. I know this list, I just feel like I missed some stuff, and um, I miscategorized some stuff, but don't worry about it. This is just to get these books out there and onto your TBRs. And yeah, thank you so much for watching BookTube, and I will see you next time.